Welcome to your deep dive. Today we're tackling a fascinating and really important topic, the girl effect. You've given me some great material excerpts from Half the Sky by Kristof and Sheryl WuDunn, plus some notes you made on global gender inequality.
It's interesting how these sources go beyond just presenting women's issues as just humanitarian concerns. They make a strong case for the economic and social benefits of empowering women and girls.
Right, Half the Sky doesn't just present statistics. It takes us to places like brothels in Cambodia and fistula hospitals in Ethiopia. We meet survivors, activists, even former presidents fighting for change.
And tying it all together is the research suggesting that educating girls might be the highest return investment in the developing world.
Okay, let's unpack that. Half the Sky introduces this idea through the concept of missing women. Amartya Sen's research really brings it to light. Millions of girls essentially vanishing from the world because of unequal access to healthcare, nutrition, even basic necessities.
It is a shocking reality. Sun's work is so powerful because it highlights the lethal impact of gender discrimination. To put it in perspective, in India, a girl dies from discrimination every 4 minutes.
Every 4 minutes, that's just unthinkable.
It is. This shocking number reveals a deeper issue. Societies where girls are seen as less valuable than boys. This devaluation impacts their access to healthcare, nutrition, even survival, leading to their disappearance.
That makes you wonder, what would the world look like if those missing women had the same opportunities as men? I mean, we see in many parts of the world that women tend to live longer than men naturally. What could they accomplish? What could they contribute if given the chance?
It's a question worth pondering. Now let's shift gears for a moment. The book dives into what they call the double X solution, how incorporating women into the workforce fueled the economic boom in East Asia.
Right. Factories preferred hiring women because they had greater dexterity and could be paid lower wages. It's a sad reality, but it had a massive impact.
Absolutely. It boosted national savings rates and ultimately led to more investments in education for younger generations. This ties into Lauren Summers' statement that educating girls might be the highest return investment in developing countries.
You mentioned cheap female labor. It seems almost contradictory to the idea of empowerment. Do you think this double X solution, while economically successful, might also perpetuate a cycle of undervaluing women?
That's a valid point. While this period led to economic growth, it also raises questions about the exploitation of female labor. The key takeaway is that economic empowerment should go hand in hand with ensuring fair wages, safe working conditions, and opportunities for advancement.
That makes sense. Economic progress should never come at the cost of human dignity. Speaking of human dignity, the book takes a dark turn when it delves into the horrific world of sex trafficking and modern slavery. The story of Wrath, a 15-year-old Cambodian girl tricked into slavery, is particularly heartbreaking.
Rath's story is a stark reminder that sex trafficking is modern slavery, with millions of women and girls trapped in brothels worldwide. It's crucial to challenge the misconception that prostitution is largely voluntary. These women and girls are coerced, deceived, and trapped in a cycle of exploitation that escape seems impossible.
The book also highlights the complexities of rehabilitation for girls rescued from brothels, like Neth and Mom. They were rescued, but faced intense societal stigma, drug dependency, and threats from traffickers.
Their stories underscore the difficult and multifaceted nature of rehabilitation. It's not as simple as rescuing them. It requires addressing deep psychological scars, the lack of opportunities, and the constant fear of being pulled back into that life.
So this brings up a huge question. What's the best way to combat sex trafficking and prostitution? Half the Sky presents two contrasting viewpoints: legalizing and regulating prostitution versus crackdowns.
The Sonagachi project in Kolkata, India, is presented as a seemingly successful example of the former. It focused on empowering sex workers to reduce HIV transmission by forming a collective and advocating for their rights.
But then the book contrasts that with Mumbai, where crackdowns led to a significant decrease in prostitution. It's a complicated issue for sure.
It is. While the Sonagachi project aimed to empower sex workers and reduce harm, it raises ethical questions about the inherent risks and exploitative nature of the sex trade. This highlights the need for solutions that address the root causes of trafficking and exploitation, things like poverty, lack of education, and gender inequality.
It seems like there's no easy answer. The book also delves into the approaches taken by the Netherlands and Sweden, right?
Yes, the Netherlands legalized prostitution, hoping to make it safer and easier to regulate.
But as the book points out, there's no evidence that this has actually reduced STDs or HIV, and trafficking continues.
And then you have Sweden, which criminalized the purchase of sexual services but not the sale, viewing the prostitute as more often a victim than a criminal.
And it seems that approach has been more effective in curbing trafficking, at least according to the book.
Exactly. It underscores the complexity of this issue and the need for a multifaceted solution that addresses both the supply and the demand.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, the book argues that one crucial element in fighting for a better world for women and girls is the power of social entrepreneurs. They highlight individuals like Sunitha Krishnan in India, who bravely confronts brothel owners and empowers survivors.
And then there's the incredible story of Mukhtar Mai in Pakistan, a rape survivor who used her compensation money to build schools and fight for justice.
It's stories like that that are so inspiring. These individuals possess a unique blend of passion and tenacity that allows them to create real change in the face of incredible adversity.
Absolutely. And speaking of adversity, let's delve into the disturbing prevalence of honor killings and honor rapes, primarily in the Muslim world.
The tragic story of Wrath really showed how vulnerable young girls are in many parts of the world, and this vulnerability is further compounded by cultural practices that perpetuate violence against women, like honor killings.
The book explains how this obsession with female virginity and family honor creates an environment where violence against women is not only tolerated but sanctioned. They highlight the case of Wanachet in Ethiopia, who is kidnapped and raped and then pressured to marry her attacker.
Her story is heartbreaking and enraging. It really underscores how cultural norms can be used to justify horrific acts of violence and injustice against women.
Yes, and this leads us to another critical aspect of this discussion, the intersection of religious beliefs and reproductive rights.
Right. Half the Sky delves into the impact of the gag rule on organizations like Marie Stopes International, which provides family planning services in developing nations.
For those who might not know, the gag rule refers to a U.S. policy that restricts funding for international organizations that provide or even discuss abortion services. This has hampered access to vital reproductive health care for women in many developing countries, forcing them to rely on unsafe or clandestine methods.
It seems incredibly detrimental that something as vital as healthcare is caught in the crossfire of political agendas. It just highlights how political agendas can have devastating consequences for the most vulnerable populations.
It does. The gag rule underscores the critical importance of access to contraception, particularly condoms, and the role of organizations like UNFPA in providing maternal health services.
Speaking of UNFPA, remember the story of Ramatu in Niger? Her life was saved by a C-section performed at a UNFPA-equipped hospital. It makes you realize just how life-saving these programs can be.
Absolutely. Now, shifting gears again, let's talk about the complexities of challenging deeply ingrained cultural norms, like female genital cutting, or FGC.
As you likely know, FGC is a deeply harmful practice that has no medical benefit and can lead to serious health complications. What I found fascinating in Half the Sky is how they approach this topic with such cultural sensitivity.
Yes. The book showcases the work of Tostan in Senegal, which uses community-based education to empower villagers to abandon FGC. It's a much more effective approach than simply imposing external pressure or passing laws.
Their approach really highlights the fact that lasting change often comes from within communities themselves. Okay, so let's turn our attention to the transformative power of investing in girls' education. This seems to be a key theme throughout the book and the research you provided.
It is. Half the Sky presents compelling evidence that educating girls not only benefits them as individuals, but has a ripple effect on entire nations. Remember the story of Daimanju. She was able to break the cycle of poverty for herself and her family thanks to an encounter that gave her access to education.
Her story really embodies how education can empower not only individuals, but entire communities. It makes you wonder how many more Daimanjus are out there, just waiting for a chance.
Precisely. And the book goes on to present research that shows a positive correlation between girls' education and reduced fertility rates.
Which is a crucial finding. It suggests that educating girls can contribute to slowing population growth and easing environmental pressures.
It's another powerful example of how investing in girls can have far-reaching positive consequences for the entire world. Now, let's move on to another crucial tool for empowering women: microfinance. Half the Sky dives into the impact of microloans in helping women gain economic and social independence.
The story of Saima, the Pakistani woman who used microcredit to escape poverty and an abusive marriage, is a powerful example of that. It shows how access to financial resources can be transformative for women trapped in difficult situations.
It is. And microfinance doesn't just help individual women. It also benefits their families and communities. The book highlights the success of the Cash Foundation in Pakistan, which has done incredible work providing financial services and education to women.
It seems like microfinance could play a crucial role in empowering women and lifting them out of poverty, allowing them to become agents of change. Okay, so I'm curious. We've talked a lot about empowering women, but what about the role of men in this whole equation? Half the Sky doesn't shy away from addressing that, right?
It doesn't. They dedicate a significant portion of the book to discussing the importance of engaging men in the fight for gender equality. They even present research suggesting that families in developing countries often prioritize spending on things like alcohol, tobacco, and festivals over their children's education.
It's a sobering thought, to say the least. It challenges us to rethink how resources are allocated within families and how we can shift priorities to better support women and girls.
It does. The book argues that reallocating resources within families can have a significant impact on empowering women and girls. For example, giving women greater control over household resources often leads to greater investments in education and healthcare.
It's a simple yet incredibly powerful concept. Okay, so it seems like Half the Sky covers a lot of ground. We've gone from the devastating reality of missing women to inspiring stories of resilience and empowerment. What do you think is the most important takeaway from this book so far?
I think the key takeaway is this. Empowering women and girls is not just a moral imperative, it's a strategic imperative for global progress. It fuels economic growth, strengthens communities, and paves the way for a more peaceful and prosperous world.
It really is a win-win for everyone involved. Well, I think we've definitely covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored the complexities of the girl effect, the challenges women and girls face, and the incredible individuals fighting for change.
We've examined compelling evidence from Half the Sky, and in Part 2, we'll delve deeper into the research on global gender inequality, exploring its root causes and potential solutions in greater detail.
Great! I can't wait to continue this exploration and see where it takes us. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep believing in the power of change. Welcome back to our deep dive into the girl effect. We explored Half the Sky in part one, and now I'm really excited to dig into the research you gathered on global gender inequality.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. It's fascinating how this research provides a broader context for why gender equality matters.
Okay, so tell me, why does it matter? I mean, besides the obvious fairness and social justice arguments, what stood out to you from these studies?
Well, what's really compelling is that gender equality isn't just a human right, it's crucial for so much more. We're talking economic development, social progress, even global security.
Wow, even global security. That's a pretty big claim.
It is, but the evidence is there. Studies have shown a strong correlation between gender equality and higher GDP per capita.
So countries where women are empowered tend to be more economically successful. Makes sense.
Exactly. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Gender equality is also linked to lower poverty rates, better health outcomes, and even improved education for children.
So it's not just about women, it benefits everyone. It really does seem like a win-win situation.
It does. And here's another fascinating angle. When women have a voice in decision-making, we tend to see more peaceful and stable societies.
That's really interesting. It makes you think about all the potential we're missing out on by excluding women from leadership roles.
Absolutely. Diverse perspectives lead to better outcomes, that's for sure. Now let's shift focus a bit and look at the impact of gender inequality on women's lives specifically.
From what I remember, you included some pretty disturbing research on violence against women. I'd love to hear more about that.
Unfortunately, it's a global epidemic, and the statistics are truly alarming. The World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 3 women worldwide has experienced physical or sexual violence.
1 in 3? That's just devastating. It's hard to even grasp the sheer scale of suffering and trauma that represents.
It is, and the consequences go far beyond the immediate harm. Violence against women can lead to long-term physical and mental health issues, economic hardship, and social isolation.
It's a vicious cycle that can be incredibly difficult to break. And it's not just violence. Your notes also highlighted the economic disparities between men and women, the gender pay gap.
Right. Globally, women are still paid less than men for the same work. And that gap has a cumulative effect over a woman's lifetime. It leads to lower earnings, fewer savings, and an increased risk of poverty, especially in old age.
It's frustrating that this is still such a persistent problem, even in developed countries. It feels like we're moving at a snail's pace on this issue.
It can be disheartening, but progress is being made, albeit slowly. And it's not just about equal pay. Another critical issue is women's lack of access to education and economic opportunities.
In many parts of the world, girls are still denied education altogether. And even when they do have access, they often face discrimination in the workforce.
It limits their potential and reinforces harmful gender stereotypes. We're talking about a tragic waste of talent and human capital.
It really makes you wonder how much further along we'd be as a global society if women had equal opportunities. Okay, so we've talked about the problems, but what about solutions? What does this research say about how we can actually promote gender equality?
You included some really interesting studies on that very topic. One strategy that stood out to me is gender mainstreaming.
I remember seeing that term in the notes. Can you explain what it means exactly?
It essentially means integrating gender considerations into all policies and programs, rather than creating separate women's initiatives. It's about ensuring that gender equality is embedded in everything we do.
That seems like a much more holistic and sustainable approach. Instead of treating it as an isolated issue, we're weaving it into the fabric of society.
Exactly. And research has shown that this approach can be very effective in a variety of contexts. Another key strategy is empowering women politically.
Right, because when women have a seat at the table, their voices are heard and their needs are more likely to be addressed.
Absolutely. Increasing women's representation in government and decision-making bodies is crucial. It can have a ripple effect on all areas of society, influencing everything from healthcare policies to education funding.
And we can't forget about challenging those deeply ingrained discriminatory social norms. We talked about the success of Tostin in challenging FGC.
Yes, their approach is a great example of how community-based education can be a powerful tool for shifting attitudes and behaviors. And there are many other organizations working to challenge harmful gender stereotypes and promote respectful relationships.
It seems like education is a key factor in all of this, from early childhood to higher education. We need to ensure that girls and women have the knowledge and skills to succeed, but also that boys and men are educated about gender equality.
Couldn't agree more. Breaking down those stereotypes and promoting healthy relationships starts at a young age. And, of course, economic empowerment is another crucial piece of the puzzle.
We already touched on the power of microfinance, but what other initiatives are out there?
There are many programs focused on supporting women entrepreneurs and providing them with access to decent work. The goal is to create opportunities for women to earn a living and control their own finances.
Because when women have financial independence, they have choices. It can truly be transformative for them, their families, and their communities.
Exactly. And finally, we can't overlook the importance of legal and policy reforms.
We saw how leveraging foreign aid can encourage countries to adopt laws that protect women's rights. But what happens after those laws are passed?
That's where enforcement comes in. We need to ensure those laws are actually being implemented and that women have access to justice when their rights are violated.
That requires strong institutions, a robust legal system, and a culture of accountability. It's a complex undertaking, but absolutely essential for creating a world where women and girls can truly thrive.
You hit the nail on the head. It's about creating a system that supports and upholds their rights, not just on paper, but in reality.
So, taking a step back, what does all this research tell us? What's the big picture here?
I think it paints a very clear picture. Gender equality isn't just a matter of fairness, it's a matter of progress for everyone. It's about unlocking the full potential of humanity.
And the good news is, it's achievable. We have the knowledge, the tools, and the resources to create a more just and equitable world for women and girls.
We do, but it requires collective action. Governments, businesses, individuals, we all have a role to play in making this vision a reality.
That's what I find so inspiring about this deep dive. It highlights the interconnectedness of it all. Investing in girls' education isn't just about education. It's about breaking the cycle of poverty, improving health outcomes, fostering economic growth, and creating a more peaceful and sustainable world.
It's about recognizing that empowering women empowers everyone. And that brings us to the end of part 2.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today, but I have a feeling the most important part is yet to come.
You're right, in part 3 we'll bring it all home. We'll explore what these insights mean for you and what actions you might consider taking. It's time to translate knowledge into action.
I can't wait. Until then, keep these insights in mind and let them guide your thinking. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've spent the last two parts exploring the girl effect, uncovering the profound impact of investing in women and girls.
We've journeyed through half the sky, meeting those inspiring individuals, confronting those harsh realities, and we delved into the research, understanding that broader context of gender inequality and its far-reaching consequences.
We've covered a lot, from that heartbreaking concept of missing women to the transformative power of education and microfinance. But now comes the biggest question. What does all of this mean for you?
Exactly. We've explored the issues, examined all this evidence, and now it's time to translate knowledge into action. You might be wondering, how can I, as an individual, actually contribute to this global movement?
And the good news is you don't need to be a billionaire philanthropist or a world leader to make a difference. Even small actions can create ripples, extend far beyond ourselves.
Remember that story of Jane Roberts, the retired teacher who started the 34 Million Friends of UNFPA campaign? She really showed us that one person with passion and determination can mobilize thousands to support a cause.
Her story is so inspiring. It reminds us that change starts with a single spark. So where do we begin? What's the first step?
Well, I'd say the first step is to simply keep learning. The more we understand about these complexities of gender inequality, the better equipped we'll be to, identify opportunities.
We've mentioned several organizations like Towston, CamaFed, and the Cash Foundation, all doing such incredible work on the ground. You can start by researching organizations, whose missions resonate with you.
And consider how you might want to get involved, whether it's donating, volunteering, or even just spreading the word about their work.
It's important to find a cause that speaks to you and dedicate your energy there. But it's not just about supporting organizations. We can create change through advocacy, too.
Absolutely. You can contact your elected officials, let them know you care about gender equality, urge them to support policies that empower women and girls, both domestically and internationally.
Yeah, don't underestimate the power of your voice. Politicians often respond to pressure from their constituents, and your voice can contribute to that.
And remember, advocacy doesn't stop at the ballot box. You can advocate within your own sphere of influence, your workplace, community, even your family.
That's right. Challenge discriminatory language and behaviors when you encounter them. Promote gender equitable practices wherever you can. Having those difficult conversations can be the first step toward, shifting perspectives.
Even small actions like calling out a sexist joke or supporting a female colleague can plant those seeds of change. And speaking of choices, let's not forget about the power of our consumer choices.
I was just thinking about that. We can choose to support businesses that prioritize fair labor practices and empower women.
Think back to Zhang Yin, the self-made billionaire who built her business on recycling. Her story is a powerful example of ethical entrepreneurship and how business can be a force for good.
Exactly. We can vote with our wallets and support companies that align with our values. But beyond our individual actions, I think it's also crucial to have a broader conversation about gender equality.
You're absolutely right. Talk to your friends and family. Share what you've learned from this deep dive. Encourage critical thinking and open dialogue.
We can create a ripple effect of awareness and understanding simply by starting those conversations. And remember, those conversations don't need to be lectures or debates. Share those stories that resonated with you from half the sky.
Those narratives of courage and resilience, like Mukhtar Mai building schools after being brutally attacked, Edna Aden building a maternity hospital with her own pension, Terai Trent overcoming incredible odds to achieve her dreams, they can be incredibly powerful in inspiring others.
Those stories really remind us that change is possible, even in the face of unimaginable adversity, and that even ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things when they're driven by a purpose.
And that's what this deep dive has been all about. Exploring the girl effect, acknowledging the challenges, and ultimately feeling empowered to be part of the solution.
We hope this journey has left you feeling informed, inspired, and ready to take action. Even the smallest steps can contribute to that larger movement.
Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep believing in the power of a more just and equitable world. The future is ours to create.
And that's your deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed exploring this topic with us. Until next time, keep diving deep.